And I've had people say, you know, my friend will come over for tea and she'll say, I love that painting, and I'll say, take it with you. So you just have to start, you know, having fun with the idea that you are ready and you're going to start doing this. One of the things I tell people about selling items, and maybe you already know this, but I know it's very hard for people, particularly with books. A lot of people in our generation have a lot of books. There's no market out there for them, but, you know, sometimes there are libraries that'll take them, you know. It's a tough thing. The other problem is pianos, unfortunately. There's really no market for used pianos, but and as they say, no one wants brown furniture. So I try to set those expectations ahead of time, because I've had a lot of clients spend a lot of time and energy trying to sell things that really had no market value. And if you are able to donate them, you can give them a good home and feel good about it, but you'll stress yourself out if you're trying to sell them, especially when people have spent a lot of money on their items. I've had that several times. If they do an online auction, they get 10 cents on the dollar, if that, and it's a lot of work to try and make that happen. I think you just have to think, yes, I spent a lot of money on this item, but I had 20 or 30 years of enjoyment out of it. So you got your monies. You know, it doesn't owe you a thing. So how do we go about starting to downsize? I think the best way to do it is to put it into manageable chunks, and if you're not moving immediately, this is a great time to start doing that. What I recommend is that you assemble all your equipment up front. So you get your space organizers, your garbage bags, your sticky notes, your dots, your tape, your scissors. Put it all in one area. That's your working stuff. And then you give yourself a day, and stick to it. So let's say 4 hours is a good amount of time to spend on downsizing. Let's say you say every Thursday from 9 to 1, I'm going to work on downsizing. So you know that's your day. Don't make doctor's appointments, don't make lunch dates, don't put anything on your calendar except downsizing during that time period. And then pick one area, room, project, you know, it could be your closet, could be your clothes, and focus in on that project. What I've done in my house is pick rooms that my husband and I hardly use anymore because our kids aren't there. That gives you a real sense of satisfaction because you work on that room, you get it done, you've staged it, you can go by and admire it every time you walk by it, but you keep it that way and then you move on to the next one. If you do know where you're going and you know what your floor plan is, then as, you know, let's say you're going to a one-bedroom apartment or a two-bedroom apartment, but you live in a four-bedroom house, then you know you can't take everything from all those bedrooms. So put everything together. Oh, I forgot to say, take before pictures in the morning when you start your project, because it'll give you a real sense of satisfaction. And if you have a friend or a relative that's very good at making decisions, doesn't get emotional, because I know every time we go through things, we find a card that one of our kids gave us when they were in second grade, you know, and you don't want to throw it away. You get emotional. You start thinking back to that time. If you have someone with you that's like, that's great, take a picture of it and throw it away, you know, they'll really help you to move forward with this process. But eliminate distractions. Don't answer the door during that time. Don't answer your phone. Don't keep moving from one area to the other. I find that is really common, which is why it's so good to have all your equipment with you before you enter the room. That way you're not going into the kitchen and then saying, oh, what did I leave in the, you know, and all of a sudden you're off in another direction. And then stick with the plan as much as you can. Push yourself for results at the end of the day so you can get that sense of satisfaction. The dot system, I love the dot system. This is where you don't have to move the furniture or do anything to it yet. Everybody gets a different color dot. So if you're married, you get one color, your spouse gets another color. If your children want anything, they get their own colors. You go around your house and you put dots on the items you want to keep. So if you're married and your dot lands on the same thing as your husband's dot or wife's dot, then that's probably going to come with you. If there's something your spouse wants and you don't want, then you're going to negotiate, but you're not going to be doing it on the day of the move. So, and then the kids get the last chance to put their dots on. And then if you want friends to put dots on, you can give them colors too. But it's a way to organize without having to do the heavy lifting yet. So that, I think that's a great idea. And then when you are working on a project, if you can put like things together, let's say you're in one room and you've got 4 table lamps and you want to pick out the one you like the best, then you look at all those and you decide which one you're going to take with you. So it makes it much easier when you do it that way. When you're doing a closet, take out all your black pants, of which I have many. Which ones fit? Which ones do you wear? Which ones do you go to? Which ones haven't you worn in a long time? And just, you know, make that decision. If you've got them all together, it's much easier to do. And then it'll probably show you how way too many you have. I think you've got to try to make non-emotional decisions. And what if is not really a reason to keep something, you know. What if I get invited to a ball and I need this ball gown? You know, chances are if any of us got invited to a ball, we'd want to go out and buy a new one anyway, a new dress. So donate those, donate that, and then, you know, it's out of the way, it's done. If you're having trouble parting with something, take a photo to preserve the memory. I had my kids' paintings all over the house, and I was like, it's time, you know, when they were little. And I just took pictures of all of them. So if you want to revisit them, you can just look at the pictures. And in the digital age, that doesn't take up any space. So, and don't add anything without removing something. So then when the 4 hours is over, you're going to wind down, you're going to take after photos, admire your new space, and then treat yourself to something special. So go out to lunch, go to a movie, get an ice cream. Don't go shopping for more stuff. Just leave it as that way, as you know, until you move on to the next room. Then, like I said, there are there are cottage businesses now that are dedicated to helping seniors through this process. They have all the resources you need. They'll work side by side with you. We have, you know, we work with them all over the country, and what they'll do, they're called senior move managers because they do everything from start to finish. But what we do is have them meet with our clients, do a complimentary consultation, assess your needs, and then they'll put together a proposal, breaking it down by their menu of services. You can pick and choose the items you want them to do for you by from the menu, and pay them, you know, for what you want, or you can hire them for the whole job. They are worth their weight in gold when you're going through this process, because they do it every day, they do it efficiently, they can teach you how to do it efficiently. What they will do, if you know where you're going, they'll take the floor plan of your new apartment and they'll actually help you to decide what furniture you're going to take, place it in the floor plan so you can see how it will fit. If there's something you really love and can't part with, they'll repurpose it, they'll show you how that will fit. They'll make sure you're not bringing too much stuff to your new home. That is a problem that happens, that people just say, oh, when I get there, if it doesn't fit, I'll get rid of it again. But then you're going through the whole process again. And the best thing you can do is enjoy your new home right away, having it feel new and spacious and fresh, not crowded with stuff that you have to, again, decide what to get rid of. They'll create a timeline and a move plan for you. They'll work side by side with you to start the project. They usually come in for about 4 or 5 hours at a time, work with you, you know, as I was just saying, room by room, project by project, side by side, teach you their efficiencies, and often they'll say, here's your homework, and then they'll come back in a couple of weeks and check to see whether you did your homework, and then maybe work with you again for a little bit. There's lots of options for using their services. They know all the antique experts to, you know, they'll know if anything you own has value that could be sold. They'll know who to call for them, and they'll point it out to you, because I've had people that didn't think they had anything valuable, but the senior move manager went in to work with them and they said, you know, we found stuff that we were able to sell and it paid for the whole cost of working with us, you know. So they really are worth at least having them come in for a consultation. They'll actually haul stuff to the donation centers or arrange for them to come and pick things up at your house. They'll also help you pack, unpack when you get to your new apartment, get you all set up, and arrange and provide oversight of the movers. Most of them have movers they prefer. I also arrange for movers, but they have movers they prefer because they work hand in hand with them all the time. So selling your home, how many of you have lived in your homes for more than 10 years? 20, 30, 40, 50? Wow, 60? Any 60s? Wow. Okay, I can tell you, because I've been in the business for, I stopped counting at 40, but selling a home today looks nothing like it looked 40 years ago, 20 years ago. I mean, it's so different now. And there's a lot, you know, a lot that needs to happen. It's much more complicated and complex because of all the disclosures and everything else. So when my clients are meeting with the realtors, we always bring in 2 different realtors from 2 different companies, because we actually look at their reports and their recommendations to help our clients to sort through all of that, because, you know, often it can be confusing. You can get 2 different values from realtors. We want to really get to that right price, because that is the most important decision you're going to make when you go to list your home, if you want to get the most money and if you want to get it to sell within the time frame. Because if you do make the decision to move to Doncaster, they're going to want you to close within a certain amount of time. What is your time frame usually after deposit?
Well, we have a 90-day
That,
initial,
yeah.
but again, it also depends on how much customizations, because many
Yeah.
of our clients
customize the apartments,
But
right.
some people will do all of our stuff first and then put their home on the market. It depends.
Yeah, all of this is depending on people's situations. But either way, you know, when I say this client has to close with the community in 90 days to any of the realtors, that doesn't mean that you're going to get less money for your home because you're trying to sell it quickly. Selling a home quickly is what gets you the most money. Homes that are priced right sell for the highest price the market will bear in the shortest amount of time. Yes?
Could you speak to the interaction between SMM and realtors? For instance, each one of the communities in the greater Hartford area, right?
Yeah,
And there are realtors in our town, we have to live in Farmington,
yeah,
who sell a lot of properties, and in particular, in our neighborhood, very high sales. I would want to work with somebody who knows not only the Farmington community, but our neighborhood to maximize the price. Can you still work with SMM on what their services are and go out on your own and select your own realtor who's going to help you stage the house, declutter it, do things like that on their own that may...
you can do, we don't require anybody to do anything. I just, the only thing, I just know that when we're providing oversight, that often helps it to go really well. I mean, I have a client right now who did that, and she has 90 days, and she hasn't gotten any offers. So, you know, and I didn't see the report, so I can't, because she didn't have our realtors come in, so I can't really advise her about what to do. She's, you know, she's getting really anxious about it. She's, so, and of course, you know, you can list with whoever you want, you can do whatever you want. One thing I sometimes recommend to my clients, because they're not obligated to work with anybody in the program, is how about let's have our realtors come in, they can do their reports, I can look at them, we can see what they say, so that if your realtor comes in and it's totally different, because that, I mean, especially during the pandemic, when I was reviewing broker market analyses, which I've done for, you know, I do hundreds of them every year, there was often a large variance in what was coming in, and we needed to, you know, get to the right place. You know, as I talk, I'm going to tell you what I think is going on now in the real estate market with buyers, you know, motivations and everything. So getting that price right is really critical, especially on the first iteration when it goes on the multiple listing service and Realtor.com. Condition has, you know, has always been important, but it's much easier to sell a house in this market in our current conditions than it was, you know, prior to COVID, where everything had to be perfect and had to look like house and garden. That has not been the case for a while, but buyers, because of the high interest rates, are getting a little more fussy about the condition. So that's another reason to have the realtors in, because let's say you have an underground oil tank. It's very hard to sell a home with an underground oil tank. You would want to get it removed now, get that done, get it out of the way. There are some things that, you know, we can just sell it as is and just price it accordingly. That's not a problem. But I want to find out what must be done, and then after that, we can, you know, decide whether to do any of the other items that might come up, or whether it just be part of the negotiations and we just price it accordingly. Staging nowadays is really staging for the camera, because when you put your home on the market, buyers are going to look at the photos online. That's how they shop now. They shop online. That's the world we are in. They are going to go through every room in your home, and if those photos look fabulous, then they're going to set up an appointment to come and see your house. So really, we're staging for the camera. And that's another important thing. Downsizing and decluttering, to me, that's staging unless you have a situation where you're in a really high price range, where all of your competition is like putting in new furniture and painting and doing what stagers do. So we would advise whether that was necessary or not. But in your answer to your question about using a realtor, of course they can work hand in hand with a senior move manager. There wouldn't be any reason why that wouldn't work. And what I like to see is my clients get a team of people that are moving in the same direction, that are helping, collaborating to get things done in an efficient manner for you. But I will say the number one most important thing in real estate is the price, the list price you put on your home. I really see it now as a marketing tool because buyers are sitting online, looking at homes. They've already lost out on 5 homes. They're waiting for new listings to come on. They've done their research. They can get access to all the information. They know what homes sold for. They know how many times a home was reduced. They know everything because it's available to them. When I started 40 plus years ago, none of that was true. The only people that knew what homes had sold for were the realtors. So I see the list price as a marketing tool, the most important marketing tool. If you price it to attract as many buyers as possible right out of the gate, the first week, what's going to happen when they're online, they're analytical, they've looked at all the information, they're being very judicious about it, and then they see a home they like, they get to the home, there's other buyers that want it. They're going to do everything they can to make their offer as strong as possible. I had a house in Brooklyn recently that was listed at $2.2 million and closed at $3 million because buyers flocked to it, and that's what happened. But I also had a house in Brooklyn that was listed at $2.2 million and sat there until we got it to 1,999 a couple of months later. So it is really important to, think about that and not get upset if the price isn't what you were hoping to hear, because maybe it's the price. That price maybe will get you what you were hoping to hear, because the goal is to get as many buyers in there as possible. Of course, the price is going to be based on analytics. We're definitely going to price it, right at the range, but more at the bottom of the range than the top of the range, because pricing lower, I can tell you, I look at 2 BMAs every single time. I look at what happens from start to finish. I can tell you, without any reason to doubt that pricing lower is going to get you more money than if you price too high. If you price too high, your home's going to sit there. Buyers are going to say, why is that for sale sign on there for so long? What's wrong with that house? And you're going to end up, not getting less money in the end. And that, I hate it when that's happening to one of my clients, because it's very hard to fix that, So your first opportunity on the market, you should really listen and get as much information as possible. Homes that are priced within 5% of the anticipated sales price have 3 times the chance of selling than one that's priced 15%. I still do hear people and realtors say, well, they wanted to try it higher, so I said, okay, we can do that for a while, because you know, maybe I want them to get more money. And I'm like, that doesn't get more money, though. It doesn't happen because buyers are too well educated now. And they've got real estate agents that are representing them. So they have to make sure they're advising them properly. The first exposure in the market is really important. The buyer interest peaks in 2 weeks. I'm telling you, they're probably at their jobs if they're looking for a home, just waiting for that new listing to pop up. And they receive pricing advice from their realtors. And the realtors that are representing the buyers, if they know it's overpriced, they have an obligation to their client, and they're probably not going to set up a showing for that house. So if you price your home properly in this market, especially in this market, you should have an offer in 2 weeks. If you don't, that's telling you something. Like I said, we have our clients meet with 2 program-trained realtors. They are, you know, accountable to us. We collaborate with them, but they'll come on the first meeting, preview your home, ask some questions, go to town hall, do research, and then they'll come back with an analytical report. They'll go over everything with you. They'll talk about the listing process, the sales process, especially for those of you who have lived in your homes for 20+ years, because it's so different. And, you know, they send the initial reports to our team. We look at them. We go back to each realtor individually to ask questions, make sure that it's been fully vetted, and then we send them back in. So that is really how if you're doing it, I would strongly suggest that if you're not going to work with the program, which is fine, that you reach out to at least 2 realtors to get 2 opinions and, you know, ask them to really explain why they're recommending what they're recommending. This map, you can't really see the colors too well, unfortunately, but it's showing inventory today versus inventory in the last normal market, which was 2019. Connecticut's inventory is down 75% from 2019. So we have a real lack of inventory. We are starting to get more listings on the market, but with the lack of building that's gone on, builders could never catch up with the future demand, or at least they're not projecting that. Now, this is not the case. If you look at Florida, it's blue, or Texas. I have a lot of people in Florida that are moving back to be near their adult children. The market has totally shifted there. They're competing with new construction. There's a lot of new construction. They have a lot of issues with insurance down there now. And they have about 10 months of inventory. A normal market is 5 to 6 months of inventory. They have 10 months of inventory. So it's shifted completely. Realtors are trying to catch up with where the values are. Sellers are trying to catch up with where the values are. But we are still very fortunate in the Northeast. Fortunate because we don't have land to build on, and we have been way behind in building any new units. Fortunate from the perspective of a seller. So the Northeast in general, the inventory is low. Listings are starting to increase, but not enough to meet demand. New construction starts are never going to keep up. Pricing correctly is still critical. Condition is more important than it was in the initial COVID years. Those people were buying houses sight unseen and not even having inspections. I think there may be some buyer's remorse at this point, but So I really strongly recommend you meet with at least 2 realtors, have them do analytical reports for you. You want to see the comparable properties that have sold in your market, and which listings is my house going to compete with when I put it on the market, because you want your house to be the house they choose. And if you're putting your house on higher than all the competition, they're going to choose the competition before you. So they need to explain that to you. These are the statistics for Connecticut for the first 6 months, and in your handouts you should have some by area as well, but I'm not including that to go over with you now. Closed sales are down. The reason they're down, not enough property to sell. That's been an issue. Sales numbers have been down because of the lack of inventory. Median sale price has gone up 11% since this time last year, so we're still seeing great appreciation. And in our market right now, homes are selling at 103% of the listing price. So, and that's because they're getting multiple offers. That's what causes that to happen. That's your perfect scenario, is to get multiple offers. There's about 2 months of inventory. Remember I said 5 to 6 months is a balanced market. There's as many buyers as there are sellers out there. Florida has 10 months of inventory. Connecticut has 2 months of inventory. So it's a great time to sell your house. So start preparing for your move. When people are moving, I recommend they get a binder that they can keep maybe on their kitchen counter, so that as you're collecting information from Doncaster and the realtors and the movers, you just put it in that binder. And then as you're getting closer to your move, you're going to think about things like every time you get a piece of mail, oh yeah, I got to do an address change for that, you know, and just write it in that binder. You have one place to go. And I know it's an old-fashioned physical thing, but it's a great way to do it, because I find clients will say, can you send me this again, because I had a note, but I don't know where it is, because they're in the middle of chaos. And we also have a moving guide that has checklists, timelines, when to start what, when to call whom, and our clients have really enjoyed using that as well. So don't wait to prepare, create a plan, do a little at a time, start with today. You'll pare down your possessions, your home will sell, and you can move on to your new and carefree life at Doncaster. Thank you. Questions?
Thank you. In addition to the actual home and property, what else are buyers looking for? For instance, school systems, quality of the town, services, etc.
Yes.
How much role does that play? And what communities in the greater Hartford area, communities, are most attractive?
Well, you know, a lot of it depends, but yes, it does make a difference, and the values will be reflected accordingly, and that when they do their market analysis, they'll be primarily what we try to do is stay within the same town. Now, with the lack of inventory and sales, it's been a little more challenging for realtors recently. The way the analysis works is they want to pick 3 listings that are on the market, which can be hard to do right now, that are similar to your home, like in the same school system, in the same town, and 3 sales that have sold within the last 6 months that are similar to your house. So if you're in a 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath colonial, they want to try to pick that style. They want to get the age of the home similar. So they do all that analytical work. And yes, all of that factors into it. And the values in your town will reflect how buyers feel about the school systems, the services, and that type of thing. Which is why you see disparities between different towns. As realtors, we're really not allowed to say one town is better than another town. It really, we give factual information to the buyers, and the buyers decide what works for them. But you can see it in the, reflection in the towns. Now, there have been times, antique homes, remember that?
Yes.
Where there aren't too many comps, and sometimes you have to go out of the town, and then you have to adjust. We always adjust. Let's say there were no 4-bedroom houses that sold in your town in the last year. Then we'd have to get 3-bedroom homes or 5-bedroom homes, and then we would adjust up or down accordingly. So all of that plays into it. But it's not like an appraiser would do, because their stuff is much more analytical. When realtors are doing it, we walk through the home in the eyes of the buyers that are out there and what they consider most desirable. And the value is, what is the value a buyer would place on that amenity, for example? And, so it's really a process, and it's interesting to me because in my many years of doing this, I think realtors often have the pulse of the value they can define it much more easily because they're working with buyers, they're in the office, they're feeling the activity level, they know the buzz that's going on there, where an appraiser is just looking at numbers. That's it. Kind of like Zillow does, which is just an algorithm. Zillow and Realtor.com, when you look and they have your number on there. So those are great little, let's look and see what Zillow says, but you really need the human part of it as well, to really get that right.
What are you advising your clients with regard to realtors' fees in light of the new
In light
law?
of the new thing, yeah. I haven't really advised anybody. It just happened. This weekend was when it went, last weekend was when it went into effect. It's going to be a little challenging. It's kind of a sea change for the industry because buyers, in order to pay a commission, they will be signing buyer-broker agreements. They have to do that. That's law. But in order to pay a commission, they have to come up with extra money, and buyers often don't have that, whereas in the past, it came out of the closing, out of the proceeds of the sale. So what I'm seeing, I can tell you what I'm seeing. I'm still seeing sellers pay a buyer-broker commission, but it's in the listing contract. But it's a discussion that you should be having with your realtor. Now, commissions have always been negotiable, and so that's a discussion you should have. But the other part is there's all kinds of different scenarios that are going on. Let's say you have a buyer, the buyer says, okay, I'm going to pay this much for my house, but I want this much to go toward my buyer broker. It's like instead of being part of the negotiation with the realtor, it's becoming part of the negotiation with the buyer, where they don't have the money to do it, although now mortgage companies are going to finance it. So yeah, I think but also one of the things that I've learned over the last couple of days as this is all going into effect is, for example, the state of Pennsylvania, and I have to find out what Connecticut is doing, they have a form that the buyer can sign saying, I only want to see listings where the seller is paying the buyer broker commission. which I thought was strange that they were able to do that, since that was the whole issue. But it's coming up with that money. You know, closing costs are very expensive, and buyers have been at such a disadvantage over the last few years. So I don't think I have an answer yet for that question, and probably will know better in a year. But I know the real estate companies have been having all kinds of meetings and have been in full discussion about this, and the National Association of Realtors has been putting things on. All the industry experts are, you know, giving people advice and doing webinars, and, you know, just to figure out where this goes. You know, we've always had buyer brokerage in Connecticut, but so the buyer's agent was representing the buyer, but a lot of times the contracts weren't getting signed. So now they have to get signed. If they're going to work with a buyer, or if a buyer's going to work with a realtor, they have to sign a contract with them now. So it's in flux right now.
Just a sea change as well. I too have been in the real estate world for many, many moons, and on MLS, it has been completely removed. There is no indication of if there is any compensation. So each transaction needs to be discussed with your realtor. In the old days, we as realtors could look and we would see what the buyer brokerage comp was. That has been completely removed from the fields. So we don't know either, and we have to call the listing brokerage and ask, are you offering compensation? Is it coming from the listing agency? Is it coming from the seller? And if not, then, as we just heard, it is the buyer would have to then be aware and be able to either roll it into closing costs or pay it out of their own pocket. So it is a whole new world for everybody. We can't just look anymore.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that there's going to be a lot of, you know, requests from buyers for the seller to cover that expense. But it's so new that, I mean, we're, what, 4 days, 5 days into it. And I know, unfortunately, with one of my clients who was paying a buyer, or is paying a buyer broker commission, the market just kind of got a little silent when this was happening. So right now, he's anxious because it's, you know, there's not a flood of buyers coming through because people are still trying to figure this out right now.
So clarification of what was just said.
Yeah.
Am I correct that the previous situation, the seller's agent shared the commission with the buyer's agent? Is that still possible?
Yes. And the thing is, what you have to look at, when they bring the listing agreement for you to sign, and this was the thing that I was so confused about when all this happened, because the suit was, they felt that it wasn't being disclosed to the clients. I collect every listing agreement for my clients across the country, and all of them had an indication for, you know, this is the commission, this is the selling broker's commission side, you know, what they get, and this is what the buyer broker gets. It was in the listing agreement that was signed by the sellers. So, and then that information went on, whatever you agreed to as a seller, that went on the multiple listing service, and every realtor was able to know what they would get compensated. Now it's just, yeah. So they have to call the agents that have the listing. I think they're still back and forth. They may allow the realtors to put compensation offered on their websites, but they there's a lot of restrictions, and we just have to see how it plays out at this point. But I was surprised to hear about that form that buyers can sign that says, I only want to see homes that are offering compensation because they don't have the money to pay it.
But that would be built into the price of the home, right?
Exactly, and you know what, it really was anyway. It came out of the seller's side, but, on the HUD or the closing disclosure. But it really was just coming out of the transaction. The buyer paid that much for the house, and the seller accepted that much for the house, and so, yeah.
It was considered antitrust violation because it was expected. So it was
Yeah.
the collusion that everybody's going to pay, what's the going rate? 6%, 5%?
Yeah, except,
And so
you know,
that was
whenever
the
someone
premise.
asks me that question, I always say, each company has their own policy, each realtor has their own policy. So that's a discussion with the realtor, and it's not always the same. So
That was the premise of the
that was the
lawsuit.
premise. But, from my understanding, it started in a state that had very few regulations, that didn't have a real estate commission, which Connecticut does. I was, raised in Connecticut real estate, where you cross every T and you dot every I, and, everything is managed tightly, the ethics, everything. So it was a surprise to me after many years of doing this that this happened, but I looked into it, and it was really some states that were kind of loose with all of
But I
that.
can tell you a lot of realtors do not really know, even though they have licenses. I received an offer this week, nothing to do with Doncaster, and several of the brokers submitting them did not ask for compensation. They didn't ask if there was compensation, and they did not submit. Had their offer been accepted, they would not have gotten paid.
Yeah.
Wow. And these were brokers.
Yes.
Salespeople. So
It,
they
it's,
really need to understand the process, as is true in anything everywhere.
yeah.
And that's what been a rude awakening.
Yeah, I mean, I've been attending as many webinars as I can on this, but I still don't, they're all like, well, yeah, we'll just move forward, it'll be good. I'm like, that's not the answer. What's your business practice going to be? So, yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah.
Are you based in Connecticut? Where are you?
I live in Connecticut, I work out of my home, but I work with clients all over the country. So I started my career in a Connecticut real estate company, doing everything, opening offices, managing branch offices. I started the relocation division, then we spun it off as a relocation company. And that's where we actually started the senior program. And now I'm at a different company that is, national. So,
Is it based in Connecticut?
no, it's based in Tennessee, but I am the one that manages all the clients for the senior program. They do corporate relocation, so too.
Do the relocation companies have higher price? They used to, I think, because at one point in time, because if a company guaranteed a property, they wanted to make sure there was a lot of, okay. If I remember, in the past, the relocation companies actually paid a premium commission.
Yeah.
Because they felt that they would get better attention and actually get the property sold more quickly, especially if the company was on the hook for selling the property. They said they'd buy it to allow the relocation to happen. Was that correct? And is it still correct?
Relocation property listing, generally speaking, their commissions are on the high end.
Right.
Because, they've got it factored into their policy. Corporations are having a really hard time with this new law too, because now they have to pay both a commission on their properties and a commission for their transferees that are moving and buying a home in new locations. So, yeah, it's a lot. especially if they're buying the properties, which, you know, worked with that a lot too. I love working with my senior clients, so that's my passion. Yes.
I just wondered if there are options available for people who live in small communities or in which some of these, like senior movement, might not be readily available.
Usually it depends on what, usually I'm able to find people.
You are?
Yeah, and if I can't find people, the realtors I work with can, but I mean, there are areas of the country that are quite remote that, you know, I work with an organization called Erickson Living, which has 24 continuing care retirements all over the country, and some of their clients are moving from really rural areas. So, yeah, we work with, we find resources.
That's encouraging.
Yeah, yeah. Are you in Connecticut?
No, we live in southern Vermont, in
Oh.
a town of 2,000 people.
Yeah, I lived in Vermont for a while.
Where do you live?
Rochester. It's in the middle, it's in the heart of the Green Mountains.
Okay,
But yes, I actually have people there.
terrific.
Yeah,
We've got your number.
yes.
How much does the age of a home affect the price, assuming it's in good condition?
What, you know, it's the condition more than anything else. That, I mean, you know, some people don't want an older home, they want a brand new home. How old are you talking about, like 1800s or?
No, ours is 35 years old.
Oh, that's not right. That feels like yesterday. It depends. If what they're looking for, you know, if they're older buildings or houses, is how much have you maintained them, kept them up, you know, replaced furnaces and roofs, but also they're looking for, has the interior been updated? If it hasn't been updated, that's very normal for us. We just price it accordingly, and I'm telling you, buyers are much more forgiving right now because of lack of inventory.
Also, how much does a master bedroom help on the first floor?
Pardon me?
How much does a master bedroom on the first floor help the sale of a house?
Do you have that?
Yes.
Oh, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So, yeah. Anybody else? Yeah.
So how does what you tell us today affected by, let's say, your children are interested in buying your house?
How does it affect it? We can work with you. I have that happen all the time.
You do?
Oh, yeah. And I also have a lot of cases where they say, well, my next door neighbor just knocked on my door and they want their daughter to buy it. But I always caution with that kind of thing, not with your children, but with a neighbor or a friend or whatever. I see them fall apart a lot, so I always say, give them X amount of time to deliver and confirm that they're moving forward, because you don't want to hold things up if they're not serious. And I do find the majority of the time that, and I'm not talking about your kids, I'm talking about in general, just as a thought. I just had a client once where it fell apart right in the middle of their 90 days that they had to meet, and they were panicking because, so, you know, it's good that, I think it's good to have a realtor no matter what, because, not necessarily for your children, but it's so complicated. It really is complicated now. I'm a realtor, I've had my license forever, and I would not list my home without hiring someone that's currently in the market, that knows, you know, all the latest regulations and everything, so. But you get a good real estate attorney to do the transaction. It should be a real estate attorney, because they really know, you know, it's specific. All right, I'm taking up too much time.
This is still on. We would encourage you, by all means, to take information about her business, ask any questions downsizing, whether it's hiring the right professionals who can give me the right microphone, sorry. Absolutely. But this was just the beginning of many of the discussions you will hopefully have with the professionals you're going to work with. And this is a great beginning, and we really appreciate you coming in and starting us off. And again, we have information over here about all the opportunities if you want to work together. And we thank you very much for coming. And please have a goodie or a drink before you leave.
Oh, no, stupid. But I'm assuming that most of them are well-versed in oh, yes. Yeah. I'm still looking really good around. Something you really like is I put me on a wait list. So, to have them ready to do that as a question. No. It's a great way to start. And, you know, if you're like what it is, you can build a relationship. Hey, you ready to go?
Right in the situation. I'm in Southern Vermont. I just want to tell you, down here in the house on an Erickson side of DC, right over the and we looked at the new one that's being built in Bethesda. Bethesda. Brand.
They're not open.
No, they're just building this. Right. Anyway, so. Yes, that's in Silver Springs. Right, I'm working. Do you? Okay. So my question is, once we decide, as I said, we've made 2 deposits, we can work with you in either case. Okay, that's good. Okay, that's good. Very good. Thanks so much. Very useful.
Nice to listen to this.
Everything's straightforward to this. It's the way the hardest part I have to deal with is negotiations with the realtors. Is a company like Premier or something like that help deal with that?
You know, we don't really get too much involved in it, but